Welcome to DM Emporium. I'm Ty. This is Alex.
Hello.
If you haven't listened to our podcast before, we're here. We call it the DM Emporium because there's things for you to grab, things for us to throw out there. A lot of links in the doobly-doo. And yeah, we're just kind of here to have a good time because why have a bad time? That's stupid.
Yeah, really. I don't think that would be a very good way to spend our time.
Give you a little bit of knowledge about us. I DM'd for 6 years, played for like 8 to 10 at this point, and I have opinions and I like to talk, and so we figured we'd talk and other people could listen. Alex?
I've been playing and pretty much DMing the whole time for about 2 decades. Boy, howdy. Every time I say it, it just, I feel another hair turn gray. And
You're lucky it's gray.
well, some of them are white, like that one in the mustache. Anyway. Yeah, I've DM'd, played for quite a long time through many different editions and rule sets and game styles. And yeah, never quite done the 1 to 20. But actually, as we may discuss today, I think I might have a contender.
Hey. And it's funny because I think one of the reasons we are a good duo is mine was super simple and easy. We just went straight through. And then yours has been so rough and everything that we have, I have like the good things to say. And you have like, this is the things you need to be aware of.
Yeah, seriously. Some of the experiences I've had. Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. Let's go ahead and dive into our first segment. This is the Character Adoption Agency.
There are heroes whose tales have yet to be told. Maybe they can find a home in your game or played by you. The Character Adoption Agency for PC and NPC seekers.
Today, our Character Adoption Agency is a character I played for a one-shot, and I think they worked really, really well for it, but I don't think I'm ever going to play them in a full campaign, so, somebody out there might as well take Malinore and run with them, and yes, it is the World of Warcraft joke of Baladash Malinore.
Hey, you know what? Nothing wrong with that.
All the better for you to take and make it your own and change his name to something that's not a reference. So to start this build, it's a 2 cleric, 12 bard. You can start whichever way you wanted. I started with bard just because I wanted the saving throws and proficiencies and stuff of the bard because also going to lean more bard. And a lot of the times, if I know I'm going to be a majority of something, I don't like to do that first level dip to get the things that I wanted. Although you could build him that way if you wanted, because you still get the medium arm proficiencies and stuff with the 2 dip into cleric. So yeah, so we did it's a College of Lore bard because aren't they all? Because this one a really hardcore support character, and I'll get into why when we get into the backstory and motivations. Expertise, Joe's classics. When you're doing a one shot, I did persuasion and deception because
fair enough,
gonna be the face. But if you don't want to be a face, because there are lots of great options for bard, because you also get your bonus proficiencies where I took history, acrobatics, and stealth. So that way, occasionally you don't have to be the one out in front.
Not perception, huh?
No.
All right.
Didn't take perception because wisdom's not going to be, wisdom's going to be okay, but.
Wisdom looks pretty good to me, sir. I'm looking at your character sheet right now.
Oh, right. I forgot. Yeah, no. Should have took a perception, actually, come look at it in hindsight. Been a while since I've looked at this character, so.
Just to throw it out there, I mean, if you take expertise for proficiency, my God, for perception, it could make up for a lack of wisdom or something, just throwing that out there.
And actually, if you're not going to be the face, doing that instead of persuasion or deception means that you could be the person in the back who's like, looking at people and
this
maybe go insight,
not to be trusted.
Insight and perception. That way you see everything that's going to happen and you tell whoever is going to be the confident face, because this isn't actually a weird, not super confident bard.
Interesting. Basically,
what I wanted to do was a bard who didn't want the spotlight, wanted to make sure that other people got to tell their stories because he considered his over. Well, we'll get into that. Expertise to perception and insight. Now that I look at it, I'll just go and change that.
Well, that's a little bit of a meta fault of mine. Is I'm an absolute slut for taking expertise and perception because I hate not noticing.
That is fair. And with Jack of all trades, you can have a lot of great things as far as...
Yeah, true.
You get the cutting words, which is always good to help be a good support character. That's why I went College of Lore instead of other ones. Your 4th level just took ability score improvements in charisma and dexterity to give them, their kind of cap off. You get counter charm, which it is. Now, it is. For additional magical secrets, these ones are important, I think, especially for a support class. I took counterspell, because somebody should know counterspell.
True.
And I took Find Familiar, actually, as a bard.
Interesting.
Now, the reason you take Find Familiar for this build is they can deliver your touch spells.
So your healing spells.
So you get the owl with flyby who doesn't take opportunity attacks, who can fly in, heal somebody, and then duck out, so you don't have to get into combat yourself.
Hey, pretty slick.
I was like, wait, touch spells. And then so that's why I went with the familiar, because that's going to be super easy, keep you out of danger, because you're not playing a brave character. You're playing somebody who is lost it. For your ability score improvements at level 8, just double charisma. Guess you get your 20 cap in charisma.
Nice.
Expertise for 10th level expertises, I should say. Took stealth and acrobatics. That way you can get out of grapples and stay out of people's hair. Your next magical secrets, I took some more options to help you not get screwed with. And Summon Draconic Spirit, which is awesome. And it has its own stat block. Its AC is kind of interesting because it's 14 plus the level of the spell.
Huh, all right.
So you upcast it, it actually gets better. Hit points are 50 plus 10 for each spell level above 5th. So you can also make it beefy, so it's actually worth summoning.
Yeah.
Like summon woodland creatures is nice for screwing up action economy, but other than that, it's kind of, it's just another thing kind of for you to throw out there to absorb some damage, hopefully,
Sure,
and help your buds. But yeah, the rend attack is pretty interesting because it's technically a melee weapon attack.
Ooh.
It's your spell attack modifier with a 10-foot reach. It's one target for 1d10 plus 4 plus the spell's level piercing damage.
Huh.
So the cool thing is it can make a number of rend attacks equal to half the spell's level rounded down. So if you cast it at 6th level, 3 of those rend attacks.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And it gets a breath weapon as well, which is 2d6. It is your spell save DC though. 30-foot cone. They'll have resistance to whatever it is. So, you summon a blue, it'll have electric, all that good stuff. And then, just have as much damage on a successful save.
So wait, the breath weapon is only 2d6 no matter what.
Yeah.
That's wild. So you can pop off with
it doesn't have a recharge or anything. So if the rends aren't getting through because it's a non-magical weapon,
all right.
Blast it with cones. The next one I did was also just get more things out there to protect buddies. It's animate objects, which
it's my favorite necromancer spell.
honestly, it's one of the best necromancer spells too, but you just turn rocks and logs and stuff around you into creatures and you can split it up a bunch. I'm not going to go too far into that spell because that one does get a little into the weeds. We'll probably do a spell specialist on it at some point.
Okay.
Because
it's a fun one.
It requires that. And then 12th level, because you dip in cleric and you want to use some of your cleric spells, they went 2 with the wisdom improvement score. Now, staying out of combat is why your constitution is going to be at 12. But if you feel like you want to be a little more secure, play it for probably more than a one shot, you can probably lose the 2 in wisdom and do something. You can get a feat or something to buff up that HP. And,
sure.
That's the build as it stands.
Well, I mean, you already have expertise to cover your really wisdom heavy skills. So.
Exactly. And then, cleric, we just dipped 2. We got Disciple of Life. So starting at 1st level, your healing spells are more effective. Whenever you use a spell of 1st level or higher to restore hit points to a creature, the creature regains additional hit points equal to 2 plus the spell's level. So if you do like a big upcast, like a Mass Cure Wounds or something that you cast at level 5, that's 7 extra HP for everybody around it. It makes all your healing spells just better.
Yeah.
And it doesn't say your cleric healing spells. So all of your bardic healing spells get that bonus to the healing as well.
Spicy.
Spicy as spice.
Sometimes with some of these builds, I wonder if there's been a sage advice or something released that we don't know about. And in the comments, everyone's just going to be like, hey, you're wrong.
Actually, I welcome it. I'd like to be corrected.
Yeah,
if we're screwing something up, you let me know, because at the time this had not been sage advice to rot it away.
Good.
And then Channel Divinity Preserve Life. As an action, you can present your holy symbol and evoke healing that can restore a number of hit points equal to 5 times your cleric level. So only 10, because you're only taking 2.
Right.
But you can choose any creature within 30 feet of you and divide these hit points among them. So if multiple people go down, this is going to be your go-to.
Yeah.
Like you say 3 people go down, bam, 3 people are up with 1 preserve life. It's amazing. As long as they're not undead or a construct. It doesn't work on
sure.
those,
I don't think those are actually playable.
Not yet. Well, hey, your allies aren't always player characters.
Fair enough. Good point. Good point. The ones I heal are.
So this class went with a point buy, dropped strength because who needs strength? I'm sorry. I just don't need it.
Fair. No, absolutely.
And then chose my 2 15s for charisma and wisdom. Yeah, you gotta.
Right.
The character's a half elf. So I chose your charisma increased by 2 and then 2 other abilities scores increased by 1. So I increased my constitution score to take that 11 to a 12 and my wisdom score so I can get all the way to 18.
Sure.
And then intelligence 10, constitution was the 11 plus the 1 for 12, and then dexterity 12. I think it ended up being 13 because I had an extra point to just dick around with somewhere.
Okay.
It was basically one of them was going to be an odd number.
Sure.
So
it happens despite our best efforts.
Actually went soldier as part of the backstory. It gives you proficiency in athletics and intimidation, which you're not going to use a whole ton, but intimidation can be very useful.
Yeah.
As this kind of bard, like back off my friends sort of thing. The reason I went soldier is because this character was built to be as part of a one-off where we were a bunch of soldiers basically, where we'd been assigned to go take out a bunch of these knights who had been taking over the forest lands of the area around it.
Okay.
Now, as part of this one-off, we got to choose magic items. And so I got the Klee Lyre. It's one of the wondrous instruments, of bardic instruments. So you get a bunch of stuff from that. I won't go into those because you're probably not going to get that. But if you get a chance, you can use a Staff of Healing really well because you're a cleric and, of course, all the healing stuff that comes from that.
Sure.
But the primary one, if you can get your hands on it to make this build really spicy, is Winged Boots.
Ooh, all
so
right.
you can be flying around everywhere. Only the ranged people can reach out and touch you, but you can cast Wind Wall. So just no arrows or anything are getting to you.
Well, I mean, and you could just fly all the way out of combat and let your owl do everything.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That was a huge part of it, was fly up and manipulate the battlefield from there.
Tricky.
Now, other than healing spells, the one nice thing about dipping both of these is you have lots of cantrips to play with. You have Guidance to help people. You have Mage Hand, Minor Illusion, Prestidigitation, Thaumaturgy, Toll the Dead, and Vicious Mockery when you need it.
Jesus.
Yeah, you're never going to be without an option, and there's a ton of those that you can use out of combat as well.
Yeah.
Now, you've got all your basic healing spells, your Banes, your Blesses. Command can be really nice to help somebody out, like even just drop your weapon to give your fighter a chance to disengage and things like that.
Yeah.
Because remember, it's only one command, but one command can open up an opportunity for somebody to get the way or,
True.
reposition.
Oh, what would the one word disarm be? Oh, disarm, I guess. Because command has to be like one word, right?
Yeah, one word command. Yeah. Like drop is the example they use.
Okay.
Drops whatever it's holding in the end until the end of the
Interesting.
and then ends their turn.
That's funny. Coming from the background that I do, if someone commanded me to drop, I would instantly drop down and start doing push-ups.
Oh, it's really funny because I was thinking the other joke response where they drop it like it's hot and like,
oh, good Lord Almighty.
I guess it depends on the NPC, but you also get really good protection spells like, protection from good and evil, sanctuary. The other spells I chose were to manipulate the battlefield. So you get stuff like blindness, deafness, hold person, invisibility, phantasmal force, suggestion, hypnotic pattern is a really good one.
Okay.
And make sure your DM's familiar with it before springing it on it, because a lot of them are like, wait, what's that?
Yeah.
Major image to give them something else to attack, tongues, wind wall, and then I went with like compulsion.
Okay.
Which can last up to 8 hours. So you can sell your horse to somebody and then they'll spend the next 8 hours just walking around trying to find somebody to sell their horse to. Polymorph, which is always fun. So you can turn yourself into a fucking T-Rex or something if you get beat up too much.
The dream.
Dominate person, mass cure wounds. So you're going to have access to 6th and 7th level spells, but because you're multi-class, you don't get to choose them yet. So you can just upcast into 6th and 7th, which with your, your draconic spirit, and you're going to be able to have some fun with.
Yeah.
Now I know what you're saying. Hey, that's a build. Where's the character? Well, there we go. So
and here we are.
Malinore, I kind of took the concept of, the tragic backstory. And then I just was like, what if I turn this to 11 and just did. So basically, happy family, soldier of fortune struck out in order to do that. But kind of became the guy who kept company spirits up, learned how to play an instrument, sang for the guys, the harmonica player, the classic Flight of the Memphis Belle, the piano player.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But then tragedy strikes.
Of course.
No, where basically the town that he was part of, it was in the Taldora setting. It was one of the big cities, but there was a major fire and like.
Oh, you mentioned this.
No, that's a totally different character, totally different campaign, totally different city. It just happens to be another burn down the city fucking backstory. But
no wonder arson features so heavily in our party's adventures.
This one, he loses mass extended family, his own personal family, wife, kids, all that stuff, and then only one left is his young sister who has to be sent to a orphanage convent sort of situation. And so he basically at that point considers his story over. He's just done with everything. And just now he's the depressed guy playing the harmonica sort of bard.
Sing us a song, you're the piano bard.
Exactly. But because of his loss, he wants to make sure that other people can get a chance not to experience what he has and they can become stronger. And so he has no interest in hurting or killing or anything like that. He's seen enough, but he also wants to make sure that those who are doing the important part, he wants to make sure that they get to tell their whole stories and everything like that. So his loss became the motivation to make sure that, no one else has to.
That's cool.
His sister doesn't really approve of it because of, I forget which religion it was. It was basically one of the nonviolent ones.
Sure.
He's going to keep sending money back and support her until she gets either established as a nun or moves on to get married or basically gets her chance to start her life. Because I made her, I think, around like 10 years old. So doesn't fully understand, spends all day with nuns, but as she grows and might get a better concept and stuff. And that's something your DM can play with, or you can talk about with your DM about like, hey, I'd like it if my sister had this arc for me to bounce off of and see what I do in character.
Nice. Yeah.
Being a half elf with his face half burnt off, he, has the kind of traditional longer elf hair, but uses it to hide both ears. So he can either expose an ear and go elf, but the other one's burnt off anyway. So if somebody's like, are you an elf or a human? He can show him the burnt ear and pretend like he's human. The elf ear if you pretend like he's an elf.
I really thought you were going to say he could use the long elven hair to hide his burned side, like an emo Phantom of the Opera.
No, he doesn't care enough about his appearance anymore. Like he's got a ghost eye from having his face burned sort of situation.
Good for him.
Yeah, he could not care. He doesn't care about himself at all. So I thought it's an interesting thing to try to play as a player, as somebody who has no self motivation.
Yeah.
But also somebody who can look at somebody else and being like, you want that thing, just go do it, you fucking coward. What's the worst that could happen? He stares at it with his face burned half off, his family dead.
It's like, well, I don't want to be the first one to bring this up to you, sir, but I think you are an example of what.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, go talk to the girl. What's the worst that could happen? Is this going to happen? Get out there. You know that. So you can use it as a fun motivation. And it's a character with a tragic backstory who isn't mopey.
Yeah.
Because it's more of this super neutral rather than sad. It's just like they're everything to them emotionally has become a dial tone because of just the too much extremes.
Okay.
But their one motivation of seeing other people succeed can be that thing that pushes them out of that.
Right on. I think that character's greatest achievement is not becoming a rogue after all that tragedy.
Yeah, that was another thing. I wanted to make a freaking tragic backstory that wasn't a rogue.
Right on.
He does have expertise in sleight of hand, but that's not unrelated. No. Now, there's a good character that somebody should play,
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can change anything and everything about them, but there's a good base jump off point for either motivation, for build, for fun things you can do. And I hope you guys liked it. Let's see. Next, we're going to do the way we play. And this week, we're talking about how to start as a DM.
The way we play.
All right. So I know what a lot of you are thinking when you're like, oh, how should I start DMing? Maybe I'll just pick up one of these pre-planned books and run that.
Huh.
No, no, I'm just kidding. For the record, I'm not saying any of those are an invalid way to start. But the thing I will say is they do more than training wheels. It's not a training wheels. It's basically, if you're not careful, if you're just beginning, you're going to just become the guy who rolls dice for the bad guys.
Yep.
Because one of the big traps with pre-written adventures is you only do what's on the page. And the real fun in DMing is the collaborative storytelling part of it, because your part of collaborating is just telling them, no, you can't do this because it's not in the book.
Yeah.
Because if you're just starting out, you have to build the confidence, in my opinion, to go, with somebody having a particular backstory or interest or thing that they want to do for their character, because more than likely you're playing with new players who will have things that they want to do with their character, but that's not in the book because their character isn't in the book.
Right.
But if you start with your own homebrew world, don't get intimidated. You don't have to start with a giant map and all of these, factions. You don't have to start with anything other than they're literally...
Village.
You start with a village.
That's actually another time when we do another map making session. I can show you how to start with a village and expand out from there throughout a campaign.
Beautiful. But you only need to know what they're doing today.
Yeah.
The best part about that is, if you start with just today, like, hey, you need to go over to that cave and beat up some people in that cave. Mm-hmm. You're going to have more fun with your players asking what they can do and not having a book to look at for the answer. Just you'll be like, oh, I don't know. You could do this. You could do that. You're going to actually start engaging with their story, and you can help write things to happen to their characters specific. Like, say you have somebody who's playing Malinori, and you're like, oh, what if they have to save a village that's on fire? Then your player has so much to work with there.
Yeah, really.
Are they super motivated? Are they traumatized? Can they not move at all? But you can make things specific to your player's characters, and that's where the collaborative part comes in.
Yeah.
You can enhance their ideas. You can throw things at them, and you can choose whatever you want, because here's the dirtiest secret about being a DM. It can make sense later.
Yeah.
You can
absolutely.
You can do what you want in the moment and then figure out how it makes sense, because usually there is a path there somewhere. And if you don't have the path right now, you can just tell your players, it'll make sense later. Just trust me. And eventually, if you earn that trust and you figure out a way to bring it back around and you do it enough times, your players are just going to, all right, and just wait for you to explain it back. But if you start out with module, you're just looking at the book. What do you think? Sorry, I'm just dominating.
No,
the
you're fine. You're
conversation.
fine. No, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, that's why you've heard me say it, not on the podcast before, but a lot of times in modules, I don't play characters. I play builds, because what's the point? I can have a character that's got, 6 great motivations and fantastic stories to tell. But if we're in Barovia, it doesn't fucking matter, does it?
It really does.
Suddenly the motivation is beat the shit out of Dracula over there and get the hell out of Dodge.
I had the same problem coming up with a character for Strahd, so I just literally just was like, okay, he's from Barovia.
Yeah, or even like something that doesn't shoehorn you into its own unique bullshit setting.
Yeah.
Like Tomb of Annihilation. You know, it doesn't matter who your character is or where they're from. You're going to Chult, and you're going to deal with these problems and have to follow this adventure path. And it's just like, well, all right. My character was a Kozakuran samurai and he had, goals and dreams and aspirations, but I guess we're doing this now.
Now, this all being said, one thing I will say is you can use them as a jumping off point. If you want to start with a low level pre-written campaign, so you can learn the rules a little bit better, so you can be comfortable landing in the system, that's one thing. But be prepared to jump off of that point, because if you do like a 1 to 3, all of your players are going to want to keep playing those characters. They're going to want to chase those stories. And if you use that as a time to plan for future stuff, learn the system, that's great. But when you get to your free roam aspects of it, which you're going to have to do eventually and develop those skills eventually, you're gonna miss the book, and that's gonna suck.
Well, I think that's what is it? Lost Minds of Phandelver. That's a 1 to 4, right? That's supposed to be kind of an intro to DMing. Mm-hmm. I'm actually playing through Shattered Obelisk right now. We just got done with our second session last night, and it was it's cute. It's fun. It's being well run. And I mean, I am playing kind of a build for it, but he'll develop into a character.
One nice thing about using the books is you can practice not having to worry about the world and just do the character stuff. So if you're running the books as a new DM or even as an experienced DM, don't be afraid to drop aspects of the player's story into the book. Don't be too afraid of the balance. You can change it. Like, if they're getting a little too strong, you can add a few more minions. There is so many ways that you can affect the flow of battle and add things or subtract things, that giving your specific character a magic weapon or a magic item that's so specific to them as a reward for some small thing. Like, say, you have a character who has a basic revenge quest, and you're planning on doing it after your module because you can't fit it into this module.
Right.
You can drop 3 NPCs that are a trail to that person. Maybe they're running notes, maybe they're all sorts of things, but give them something to do that's specific to their character. You can practice that with a module.
Yeah.
Now, if you just dive in, you're going to be doing it right off the bat and you're going to have fun. And I believe that's the way to do it. But I'm a deep end of the pool kind of guy. I jump in and go, I'll figure out how to swim later.
Well, no, I agree with you. I actually think that starting with homebrew is probably better. Maybe starting with Lost Minds would be good just because it kind of covers some stuff that you might not think about on your own as a homebrew DM, but I also think that it's important to kind of note how complicated it doesn't have to be running a homebrew. Because, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I did a homebrew and I, spent months and years, drawing this map and making this setting, and here's all the important people and here's this, that, and the other thing. But if you do that, you run into the exact same problem that a lot of the modules have, where it's like, well, here's everything in this setting. It already exists. Now I don't know where to fit your character in. Yep. And that's another thing that you kind of might need to worry about if you're running I don't know if we talked about this last week or if it was after we were done recording, when you're running an adventure out of a book, and, let's face it, 95% of them are based out of Faerun. And, you get 3 sessions in and no one's, even heard of D&D really before in your group, but everyone's having a really good time. And you get that one guy who's just like, man, this is really neat stuff. And they go home and they spend the next, the rest of the week until you guys meet up again on the wikis. And they're reading and they're researching and they're doing all that lore dive stuff because, they think it's really interesting and cool.
And it is. And it's fun to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let me tell you, every single time I've done a lore dive about something, it's not for meta reasons. No. It's because I find it interesting.
For me, always.
But then if they come back, next week for the session and everyone's just like, all right, here we go. And they're just like, oh boy, have I got things to tell you guys. Here's why we shouldn't trust those drow. And then it's just, it's kind of, or even something, a little less on the nose or obvious, like, oh, here's, everything I know I just learned last week about the High Lords of Waterdeep or whatever they're called. Yeah. And then it's just like, well, great. Now you know more about the politics than I do because I just started DMing all this stuff and paying attention.
And I was worried about running everything out of this book. So I've only studied this book.
Yeah.
And then, hey, what about this god? I don't know about that god yet. Hold on. Let me Google real fast. Oh my God, I got it.
What about this god? Yeah. What about that god? I don't know.
Well, when you're running homebrew, if somebody says, what about that god? You can be like, like, I don't know how they're going to play into my setting yet. Let me look into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Be honest with them if you don't know. Like, too many DMs try to do I know everything and I am everything. That is not a responsibility you have to have.
Yeah, no, really.
And with homebrew, it gives you a lot more freedom to say yes or no, and then give good reasons. You can say, hey, that particular god, it's part of the dead three.
Okay.
Actually, in my setting, there's only one god of death so far.
Yeah.
Just let them know, like, that's just the way the world that they're living in. But find out the reason they wanted to find that god, and then you can attach whatever reason they want. You can background it into your death god. You can make the player happy, yourself happy, without having to worry about making the setting that everybody else already knows happy as well.
What is it you like about Cyric? Oh, I just think his symbol's cool. Bet absolutely we can 100%. Work with that and not have it be a chaotic evil god.
Exactly. Dude, some gods have some badass symbols.
Yeah, so really.
That's a really good example. But that's our advice. I know it's funny because I ironically started with a literal just level 1 pre-written. It was called the Master's Vault. It's for free on Roll20. You can run it yourself if you want to give it a shot. But it's literally just a bunch of examples of how to play the game. There is a skill test. There's a small combat. There's a role-playing test. And then there's different things like that. It's really nice, but it also, can get your juices flowing of like why these things happened. It worked really nicely for me. It'll probably take you 1 to 2 sessions depending on how new your players are. If you have experienced players, it's going to take 1 session. It's going to go really fast. You're going to panic.
Geez, I wish something like that existed for, every game system. You remember last week I was talking about taking a session to focus on each one of those things.
Yep.
If Ultramodern had a Master's Vault thing just to cover its own special rules. Whew.
Honestly, they should take your town invasion angle and make that a one-off. Because what I was thinking about this actually I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this actually for the Ultramodern. You take that, but what I would do, I know we spent way too long in character creation for this. So this is not me critiquing your DMing. I want to make sure that's perfectly obvious. But I would have had a skill challenge and a role-playing challenge.
Yeah.
So you have your players get to shop a little bit at the general store because everybody likes shopping a little bit.
Sure.
But then you can also go to the different store owners and everything like that and be like, hey, we're preparing for stuff. What do you have for me? What's important to you?
Yeah.
What's it worth to you for me to protect that special thing? Where you can go more mercenary, or you can go more heroic, but then there's a boon you can get from them. Like you get 6 bullets of special ammo.
Nice. Yeah.
But it also shows off the rules of the special ammo. Yeah. So you look at the rule that you want, like, so you want a
armor piercing
ammo, grenades.
Yeah,
the TNT and everything like that. You get, so you take it and you go, here's a new character option for you. And the characters and the players, instead of going, oh God, something else to read, they go, ooh, cool, an item,
Yeah.
And it incorporates it directly into gameplay. I think the defend a town from incoming attack is a great one-off.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Meanwhile, we're going to move on from the way we play, I think, right?
Yeah.
We're going to move on. I think what we're going to talk about next is we're going to do some spell specialists. We're going to dive in, and you know what? You'll get the spell in a second.
Spell specialist. Because magic is complicated. And who wants to read all that? We do.
So the spell specialist today is going to be about slow. Slow is it's a spell that plagued my campaign, can be learned by wizards or sorcerers, or order domain, or blood domain,
or the Circle of the Land Arctic.
The Circle of Land Arctic, specifically for the druids. Now, the order and blood domain, those are blood hunters, right?
No, they are clerics.
Clerics! Oh, I forgot blood domain.
Yeah, the blood domain, that's a whole new one, which we'll be featuring in some worlds that I do moving forward. Mesoamerican stuff.
I love blood-based magic. It's
Me
so
too.
The flavor, Duke, the flavor. In the meanwhile, do you want to read out the spell? You want me to read it? Or anything?
I can read it.
All right.
It's a 3rd level spell. Casting time 1 action. Range and area 120 feet, and then a 40-foot cube. Components are verbal, somatic, and a material component consisting of a drop of molasses. Duration is concentration 1 minute. It's transmutation spell. It's a wisdom saving throw, and it's a control spell. You alter time around up to 6 creatures of your choice in a 40-foot cube within range. Each target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or be affected by this spell for the duration. An affected target's speed is halved, it takes a -2 penalty to armor class and dexterity saving throws, and it can't use reactions. On its turn, it can use either an action or a bonus action, not both. Regardless of the creature's abilities or magic items, it cannot make more than 1 melee attack or ranged attack during its turn. If the creature attempts to cast a spell with a casting time of 1 action, roll a d20. On an 11 or higher, the spell doesn't take effect until the creature's next turn, and the creature must use its action on that turn to complete the spell. If it cannot, the spell is wasted. A creature affected by this spell makes another wisdom saving throw at the end of each of its turns. On a successful save, the effect ends for it.
Now, one thing that I think it doesn't mention that is important to mark is when they're casting the spell and they have to wait till the next turn, they are technically considered concentrating on that spell.
Ooh.
So you can hit them and break their concentration, making them unable to finish casting the spell.
Nice.
Now, slow has a weird reputation in D&D. As far as I've been able to see, most people are like, it's fine, but it falls off because everybody can make wisdom saving throws. And it's like, no, dude, kidding me. Okay, granted, I'm a DM who cannot make their saving throws. I'm just going to be straight up honest with you.
Hey,
but the fact
happens.
that you can affect up to 6 creatures in a 40-foot cube means you can take, like, say you're surrounded by anything, even if you have 6 creatures that have 2 attacks, you're having the amount of attacks that your party's taking if they don't make their saves.
Yeah.
And against creatures who multi-attack is their whole thing, like my big example is early on in my campaign, my crew faced a Hydra. Whole thing is more attacks, and the more you hurt it, the more attacks they get, and it's supposed to ramp up tension. They're like, slow.
Oh.
And a Hydra, they don't have wisdom. So
Whoops.
never made the save, just a Hydra making a single head attack and just getting chopped into pieces. It was amazing. But yeah, maybe one's going to make their saving throw, but all 6 aren't going to.
Yeah.
You know, the incredible, the drop of the molasses, that's one of those you can bypass with a component pouch or a
Yeah, it doesn't have a listed
focus.
Doesn't have a listed gold cost.
Exactly. And I just love the flavor of molasses.
Me
You
too.
could just
It's delicious.
Well, it's really funny. And also your character, if you're trying to be a subtle spellcaster or something, you can carry in molasses for so many different reasons. Like, I like it in my tea or whatever, you know?
Oh yeah,
But
absolutely.
then you pull some out, and then you can flavor the casting of the spell either way you like. Because with molasses, I remember in Critical Role, they had a wizard who used slow, and he would slather his whole hand in molasses to cast it.
good Lord Almighty.
It's consumed by the spell. So
Oh, good. That is both excessive and dirty.
oh, dude, who's playing a filthy wizard? You'll love season 2. That's all I'm gonna say. But you could have just a single drop where you pull it out, and then you do the positions of a clock. You start at noon, and then you go fat and then slow it down, or like there's all sorts of different flavors you can add to it. Or maybe you flick the single drop and magically, strands expand out from it, and you see like the strands holding people in place so they can move through it slowly. Like the flavor potential, which a lot of these components, that's the main thing, is
Right.
the flavor.
Yeah.
One thing I really like is the half speed. So
Yeah.
with 120-foot casting range, if somebody's running at you and you're like, slow, you get twice as many rounds
Yeah.
before they get to you to
You have-
blast the crap out of them.
You have days to get them.
Because what's that? It's 15 feet. So, your normal, instead of 4 rounds, you have
gonna
8
take
rounds to get there while your party's just plinking and blowing them up.
Jeez.
And
And that's
whoever-
assuming that no one's walking backwards while they're charging at you.
Well, and then, yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you use your 30 feet, they're never going to reach you. And whoever does make their save is 1 running into 5, Like,
Yeah.
you're just screwed. Its ability to affect the battlefield and reduce your AC.
Yeah.
-2 AC. That's a fucking shield
Yeah.
difference. Like, it's... Oh, so good. What do you like about Slow? I'm just...
Well, no, actually you hear so often, or I do at least, I see it online and stuff, DMs complaining, oh my God, one of my player characters has like 21, 22 AC, something ridiculous like that. How do I counteract this? And everyone does the, well, have them make saves, have area effect attacks, attack them, shoot the monk, that whole thing. But
always shoot the monk.
Always shoot the monk. But yeah, just, a little effect like this. Now, one of my only hangups about the spell is it is level 3. And that is that's the sweet spot. That's the fireball. That's the lightning bolt. But also, I mean, you hit, assuming that you're the villain, you hit the party with this, you've got time for fireball. You got time for lightning bolt. You got time for what is it? Flaming sphere? Is that still a level 2?
Well, remember, they get a -2 to their AC and dexterity saving throws.
Yeah, so you start with this, then you just
fireball.
let it happen.
Oh no.
And then the same thing as a player character, one assumes that, you're going to be using this on a horde of enemies, but you don't have to. You could just hit one main enemy like a Hydra.
Yeah, like Hydra, yeah.
Or, you know, the enemy champion who's a renowned melee fighter and you just slow him and, well, have fun with your 1 attack and -2 AC, nerd.
Yeah, you're probably close to level 5, if not level 5 at this point. So your fighter is going to appreciate doing a 1-to-2 ratio fighting this guy, you know. Hell, ambush slow. And then they only have 15 feet of movement. So if they're all together and they try to run 15 feet away, they're all still in range for the fireball that's coming next with -2 to the dexterity saving throw and 2 to their AC, which everybody's shooting them with something.
That's why you should always travel 20 feet apart in open terrain. An old Rogers Rangers rule that I've adjusted to D&D.
There you go. I just think too many people see slow and go, okay,
Meh.
they're going to make their saving throws and then I wasted my spell. And no, you did not.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, you could stack this up. You could do what is it? Mind Shard, I think, the cantrip that's
that takes you, it takes away from your saving throws. Yeah.
Subtracts 1d4. You hit them with that one round, then follow it up with this. And you know,
you're a sorcerer. You can use 1 to quicken your cantrip. And then you quicken your cantrip, hit them with that. So they're less likely to make their saving throw. And you know what? With Saver Suck spells, you got to lean into it.
Yeah. You got to make it work for you. You can't just hope.
Well, and you can't be too mad when it doesn't happen, because it's the whole point of Saver Suck. Yeah. It's a really cool thing if it happens, but that's if it happens.
Right.
You know. And granted, this was one of the cool things my players did with it was it's a great way to get legendary resistances out, because being slowed is such a son of a bitch.
Ooh, yeah.
And you can get multiple people. Hell, even in the final battle, I think they still used slow to get legendary resistances, because I didn't make my saving throw.
Right, so you had to burn one.
Well, and it's like, I have so many attacks and things that I can do on my turn with actions and bonus actions. I'm not just going to do one. Screw you, legendary resistance, totally worth it. Don't care. Like, and that's the thing. I just love the idea that you have this thing that is so detrimental going both ways that it's worth getting rid of.
Absolutely.
That's the special spell of the day. And that one goes out to TJ, the sorcerer in my campaign. Vice Sayer was the character name, but my brother just screwed so many encounters with it that I have nothing but respect for the slow spell.
Excellent. Love to hear that.
Now, coming up next is the Better Build Bureau.
Oh boy.
Not getting everything you want out of your character? The Better Build Bureau can help fix that. BBB, your guide to min-max mayhem.
All right, so for today's Better Build Bureau, it's going to be interesting because this is not technically an optimal build, but it also technically is an optimal build.
All right.
It doesn't feel like one until you're actually playing it, in my experience. So this one is kind of simple. This is only going to go to level 5. This is a healer monk.
Okay.
Proficiencies, there's a ton of things you can go with. I went with acrobatics, stealth,
sure,
and alchemist supplies.
Huh. Okay.
So you can make healing potions and stuff, because this is another healer build.
Okay. All right.
Now, you got your armor, defense, dedicated weapon. You can choose whatever is, flavorful for your character. Mm-hmm. This was a Shadar Kai, so they had a bladed, whip weapon sort of thing.
And was that just like a reskin spear or something?
Yeah, reskin spear. I think what is it called?
Like a rope dart?
Rope dart.
Yeah.
That's the exact thing I was looking for.
Hell yeah. I know things sometimes.
But the big thing about this one is, for your monastic tradition, choose Way of Mercy. Now, Way of Mercy gives you Hands of Healing, where you can spend a key point, and when you can touch a creature, you restore hit points equal to your martial arts die. So that goes, 1d4, 6, 8, 10, whatever it is at the time, plus your wisdom modifier. Okay. So you basically get Cure Wounds.
Nice.
And that's for one key. So, it's a really nice, really simple way to keep yourself healing. And you also have Hand of Harm to do the exact same thing with damage.
Nice.
You can be melee. You're not a spellcaster. You can heal still. Like when somebody falls down, you can pick them back up.
Nice.
And then for your level 4 feat, you're going to take Healer. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with the Healer feat, when you use a healer's kit to stabilize a creature, that creature, instead of becoming stable at 0, they get 1 HP. So they're conscious, they're up, they're awake. So you can get people back into the battle with just using your healer's kit. And also, the cool thing, as an action, you can spend one of your healer's kit to tend to a creature to restore 1d6 plus 4 HP, and plus an additional hit points equal to the creature's maximum number of hit die. Okay. So whatever level they are, basically.
Nice.
That's just level, isn't it?
It is, but again, everything you're healing might not be a player character.
That's true. Yeah, there it is. Thank you. The creature can't regain hit points from this feat until it finishes a short or long rest.
Okay.
So it gives you, if you're out of your healing hands, you still have great healing options once per battle.
Yeah.
And so you have a whole ton of different ways to heal somebody and harm people. And you get your extra attack at level 5. You get your focused aim at level 5 to spend 1 to 3 key points to increase your attack roll by 2 for each key point. So if you're doing you really need to end somebody, you can end them fast. And you got your stunning strike. You can do anything you want pretty much as far as damage or healing. I also did sleight of hand and urchin for the background. Background for as urchin, and then sleight of hand and survival with the disguise kit and thieves tools. So you have your options to disguise yourself, break into places, heal people with your healer's kit. You have a lot of options. I think this does a really good job of an example of you don't have to be a spellcaster to be a healer.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of the time people think of healer as the heal bot. Somebody who stands in the back, white mage, casting cure wound. Like
life cleric.
Life cleric. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can be a full melee monk fighter and still, if you're, say your party needs a healer. I played this character in a party that was a cleric who was a thunder cleric who refused to heal anybody.
Love storm clerics. Or tempest cleric.
Tempest cleric, yeah. A barbarian and a warlock. So no one else was willing to heal or had the ability to heal. And so I just rolled in with this guy. Now, the cool thing about this is a lot of your healing is based off your wisdom modifier, and a lot of your damage is also based off of your wisdom modifier. So while you're a monk, dexterity is not your most important skill.
Yeah.
So you don't get into that, the too many attributes to distribute points along. Yeah. So you can even have a decent 14 constitution because you're going to be in the middle of battle.
Sure.
You've got an AC of 17, you're in it to win it. You're fighting, you're having your fun. And when somebody falls down, you pick them back up. It's a really nice thing. One of my favorite things about it, though, is you can heal as a bonus action because you can turn any of your attacks into a hand of healing, including your flurry of blows. You can get 3 attacks and a heal off for 2 key in a turn. You can get in there. You can burn everything to destroy while also not letting everybody fall down. You can also turn your flurry of blows into 2 hands of healing.
If you really wanted to do a little bit of multi-classing ridiculousness, if you had high enough dexterity, you could dip 3 levels into rogue to get that thief, quick hands, and then now you're
action healer kit.
Yeah. now you're cooking.
With that, you could technically burn 2 hands of healings for your punches and a healer's kit as a bonus action, or you could spend 5 key points to do 4 hands of healing on somebody.
Jesus.
Just punch them back to life.
Oh man, that's ridiculous. But that's kind of the point of the Better Builds Bureau.
Yeah. And you can use hands of healing on yourself or use your quickened healing. So you can, heal yourself. And you have all of the regular key options. You have flurry of blows, patient defense, step of the wind. There's so many options to not just be a heal bot. Because heal bot can be gratifying, but for the most part is a little boring.
Yeah. Like, unless that's really something you're into. Like, I've known a couple of players who are party moms, so to speak, and they love doing the healing thing because, they're making sure all their friends are taken care of, but it's not for everyone.
A lot of people complain that HP doesn't matter till it's gone.
Disagree.
Yeah, I know. But there's a common talked about thing where as long as you're getting picked up, it doesn't matter what your HP is. But with this build, the tension in the party can get a little higher because you're riding that line between life and death. When I was playing it, I did a Shadar Kai who was trying to find the point where death actually happened to see if he could sever the Shadar Kai from always having to go back to Shar. So you can also work that line between life and death into your character.
Nice.
That's kind of one of the builds that I put together because I want people to realize that what you want to do is probably possible, but you got to think outside the box. Check all your subclasses because you wouldn't think about when you're thinking healer. How many people go straight to monk? Nobody.
No one. I don't know anyone who goes straight to monk for anything. Not even unarmed fighting builds anymore.
That's the beauty of the amount of things we have for 5e now.
Yeah.
Granted, there's still a lot of stuff that people want to see, but the amount of things we have are so many wonderful options that there's going to be something out there for you. If you're a player like me who you want to bring what the party needs, you don't have to be pigeonholed into that exact archetype.
Yeah, so no, definitely.
The build of the day. It's super simple. It's just a Way of Mercy monk with the healer feat and as much wisdom as you can throw at them as you grow. For now, that Better Build Bureau, if you want to be a healer, but you want to be a monk, you want to be a fighter, you want to be somebody who's in it, I recommend this build highly. I played it myself, had a ton of fun.
Nice. And otherworldly inspiration next up?
Oh, yeah. I cannot wait for this one. Okay,
Oh,
so
boy.
Otherworldly inspiration. Let's go.
It's time to take Otherworld inspiration. It's not plagiarism if you tweak it.
All right, so you have something really
Stupid.
amazing, in my opinion, for this otherworldly inspiration, because, you know, a lot of people, when you think otherworldly inspiration, you're thinking books, movies, just something that has a full plot line. And what do you have today?
Or even, you know, people might, if they think video games, are thinking things like Assassin's Creed or, you know, something with like a real fully fleshed out story and characters and all that stuff. So I have been planning for a little while to do a World War I themed short shot, you know, 4 to 6 sessions for Ultramodern.
You know the best part about World War I?
Huh.
You can't make it more complicated.
Yeah. Well, we don't get into the politics. We just want the trench fighting
We were
experience.
soldiers.
Yeah. So with that in mind, you know, I got on the old PlayStation and started looking around at some of my games. You know, I've played Battlefield 1, I've played Verdun, I've played Tannenberg, you know, I've been in the trenches, as it were. So with that in mind, I was looking around for some other games to try to play and, you know, kind of see what I could use to get the juices flowing. And I came across this game, Toy Soldiers.
I'm sorry, Toy Soldiers?
Toy Soldiers. So, you know, the idea I think originated as like, you know, little green army men type thing, but it's dialed back to World War I, and like the dudes look like little painted miniatures or something.
Like the wooden Napoleonic.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Like the OG war game.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so the theme is, you know, completely World War I based. And I watched the, you know, little gameplay footage and I was like, oh, this seems cute. It was a little less first person oriented than I thought it was going to be. It was more, you know, top down tactical or strategic type stuff, but it was fun.
Okay.
And it was neat. It was giving me some ideas, you know, ways to set up battle mats at least, stuff like that. And then, you know, I got through most of the campaign in one night. The next night I came back. Oh yeah, I burned through it. I mean, I was up till 4 a.m, but what are you gonna do?
Like an 8-hour full campaign sort of situation?
Yeah, you know, it took a while. But it was, you know, had a good time. I figured out the mechanics quickly. But towards the end of the game, you swap perspectives. You know, you play most of the game as the British and whatnot, but near the end, suddenly you're playing as the Germans, and it's, you know, the Germans on their way marching home from war get attacked. And I believe the name of the mission is When Toys Collide.
My brain just went to the musical thing. This is what it's like when toys collide.
Well, I mean, the next mission is Not of This Toy Box.
Come on.
So what happens is, you know, you're playing your little German soldiers and you've got your fortified position and you get attacked by UFOs and cosmonauts. And then it's like all these other messed up toys and whatnot, you know, little fire trucks and everything.
That's amazing.
But it got me thinking.
The amount of toys you have in D&D to pull out?
Well, I didn't go that deep, but it was just like, oh, okay, so what if for this World War I game, you know, what if they were doing their thing and all of a sudden fucking aliens?
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's, you know, going to be this.
Are we talking little green men, grays? Or are we talking like
absolutely?
Illithids?
That's how well, what ended up happening, and this is kind of how otherworldly inspiration works for me. So it went from a World War I themed thing, and it was going to have, you know, different D&D races. We were going to have like GIF and furbolgs and everything.
That Loxodon English sergeant. But.
Yeah. But then it gave me this idea, you know, what if it was actually, we were dealing with real World War I stuff. So I, you know, got with everyone, said, hey, we're going to be humans instead, if that's cool with everyone. Straight up ultramodern classes. We're not going to dip anything from 3.5 from 5th edition, you know, unless you've got a really good explanation or character idea that, you know, actually fits with that. And Ty, you're getting some spoilers for this, but the campaign, the short shot's going to be the Battle of Passchendaele.
What's a Passchendaele?
Passchendaele was, I believe,
is this a joke on the Toy Soldiers thing?
No, it is not, actually.
Okay.
I might be mispronouncing it, but I think it was the Third Battle of Ypres. It was kind of later.
Sorry, it's not your fault. No,
Ypres.
Okay, all right.
It's French. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You know, kind of happens later on in the war. And I guess to kind of dial back, how otherworldly inspiration like this hits me is one little thing can spark a whole idea. And so we went from having this, you know, kind of more fantasy based World War I themed idea
a little more straightforward,
more and less, because, you know, there was going to be magic and stuff and all this, that, and the other thing.
For a D&D thing.
Yeah, for D&D more straightforward. Yeah. But then it gave me this idea and I was like, well, you know, hold on. What if it was just World War I soldiers dealing with some other weird shit? So, and like I said, you're going to get some spoilers here.
Okay.
So
I'm excited.
Passchendaele, huge, terrible fucking battle. I mean, we're talking 400,000 casualties on either side.
My God.
Yeah. And it was like a 3-month battle.
Oh,
But
holy shit.
yeah, this was not a one
Oh,
night
this was
war.
like the back and forth trenches.
Yes.
Okay, I see where we're doing.
Yeah, because that's kind of what I wanted to do, was do a bit of the trench warfare because, well, otherworldly inspiration, this is the time for it. World War I, for anyone who's wondering, makes a fantastic D&D campaign if you don't just focus on being in the trenches and getting mortared all the time. The reason it's a good campaign is because, at least for like a shorter type thing, after you cross no man's land, which can be a really fun stealth-based combat scenario, think the King's Man.
I was just thinking the Kingsman. That's so funny.
I mean, that's a great moment in that film. Once you get across to the enemy trenches, especially if they've retreated and you got a little bit of a 1917 situation going on, as you're exploring the enemy fortifications and everything in their trench line, there can be traps, there can be environmental hazards, a couple of enemies who are hidden behind. You know what this is? It's a dungeon crawl.
Holy shit.
Straight up.
Just straight up a dungeon crawl.
Yeah.
There'll be different options. And not only that, you can expand it into being a huge dungeon crawl, depending on the level of dig in. So if you're in a few months long battle, there might be, holy crap,
Yeah.
that's cool. I had never thought of it as a dungeon crawl, but it just straight up is corridors with traps and enemies. And
Yep. Actually, watching 1917 sold me on that idea. The scene where they're going through the German fortification, I was just like, oh man, this is just D&D. That's really neat. But so that's...
the fucking trip shotgun sort of trap, like, and if you disarm it, then you have a shotgun for the players. Like,
absolutely.
That's some fun, cool stuff to play with. I had never thought of. Wow. Okay,
otherworldly inspiration.
Otherworldly inspiration.
This is my bread and butter, is finding other stuff to inspire my D&D.
See, I'm the opposite. I'm so bad at it. I'm like, I'm gonna make things that no one's gonna recognize, and then I'll be doing something. My players will be like, oh, like this. I'm like, no, it's not like that. So.
Well, so that was originally part of the inspiration behind wanting to do a World War I themed thing. So kind of getting back to it with this idea that, oh my God, what if we did just normal World War I stuff where they're just regular people, no magic, all humans, that sort of thing. But they have to deal with some otherworldly shit. It was like, well, aliens are cool and all, but that's a big reveal to do early on.
Yeah.
So instead, what's going to be happening, we're going to get real weird with it. We're going to get Weird West, but Weird World War.
Huh?
So this
Weird
big battle,
War
yeah, Weird War I, really though. So there's a whole lot of stuff that's going on behind the scenes before the campaign or anything starts.
Yeah,
mostly revolving around Rasputin.
Of course.
We'll circle back on that.
Oh my God, that's why he was so hard to kill. Sorry, continue.
Yes, but not for the reason you're thinking.
Oh,
so for whatever reason, it just seems no matter how many Germans they kill, the Allies, were they the Allies back then?
We'll just go with Allies because that's the easy reference point.
The British, because it was mostly the British at Passchendaele.
The winners.
Yeah. They just, for whatever reason, are having real trouble shaking the Germans. Like, no matter how many they kill, there's always more to replace them. So what's going to happen is a few sessions in, there's going to be the short shot starts with everyone getting attacked. Oh God, it's the Germans, whatever. They fight them off. And then command's like, hey, counterattack, go hit their trenches. That's when they're going to start noticing some things like, oh, okay, there's a bunch of dead Germans in the German trenches. And then they get up.
They all have the same. Oh no, I was thinking a cloning thing. All of them getting up is far. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. All right. Oh no.
So they start getting up. Now, bear in mind, for anybody who really wants to pay attention to timelines, Passchendaele starts 31 July 1917. So that is, 6 months after Rasputin is assassinated. It'll tie in. Just stand by.
Okay. All right.
So the German soldiers start standing up.
Holy crap.
Suddenly they're dealing with undead stuff. This is how we're starting to weave in magic, because what happened is this went from a short shot to be like, oh, here's something to, kind of get you guys familiar with the system, to
Rasputin became a massive necromancer because of an undead god reaching out to him and saying, your business not sorry, I'm just
kind of quit reading a head tie.
Sorry, I'll put it down. This is fucking cool.
So what happened is this is now tying into something that was going to be a feature, kind of just a side note almost to a whole science fiction based game that's going to take place, down the line once everyone's familiar with the rules. Well, this is how we're going to start rolling everything in. So,
oh my God,
now we're dealing with undead soldiers, which literally is just, normal soldier stat blocks, but we're going to give them the unearthly toughness that zombies have is.
Yeah, they come back with 1 HP until you put
that
them down
thing.
hard.
Yeah. So that's happening. That's insane. Everyone's tripping out. Holy shit, they're zombies. Whatever. They clear the trenches, do a whole thing. They have to do the dungeon crawl of the enemy fortification.
Yeah.
Then they realize, they're going to find some discarded documents. They realize this is a trap. These are bait trenches. Next session's going to open with an artillery bombardment on their position.
Oof.
Everyone's got to run. Oh shit, get out or take cover, whatever.
Yep. Probably have a burrow speed. Can I burrow? You're a human. You do not have a burrow speed.
No one has a burrow speed. So bombardment happens. It's a whole thing. It's terrible.
Oh, so you lure in English soldiers, blow them up, and then raise them again. Oh, that's a dick move.
Obviously, the party's going to survive. While I do like the idea of using artillery bombardments or things like that as traps or hazards while crossing no man's land, doing something silly like that.
You need just to get across.
Well, just throwing it at your players in this kind of setting is kind of a dick cheese move. Because whatever level they are, it's basically just, oh, here, take fireball.
Well, and
you'll get a reflex save or whatever, but it's randomly allocated damage they can do nothing about.
Reflex, you 3.5.
Oh, right. Sorry. Dexterity saving throw. Yep. It still happens to this day.
Also, I think it's not a good tension builder. I think when you're crossing no man's land, you're going to be smart in doing it at night in the cover of not knowing where you are is a big tension thing. And I saw the trap and stepping over it is satisfying rather than you just got blown up for no reason, Absolutely. And that actually ties in with what the next mission is following that. The danger of using light can be emphasized a lot with using a bombardment. So you still have the threat of it.
Reading ahead.
Well, I'm back in no man's land. So the threat of using light is still major. So anybody who doesn't have dark vision, which isn't going to be, with the ultra modern, some people might. Depending on what we roll. For the most part, us trying to rely on those who do, because it's not going to be everybody. It's going to be a major tension building, ratcheting. I like that a lot.
So the next mission, volunteers are called forth. And if no one volunteers, it's going to be the party.
Psst, I'm a volunteer.
Good.
I already knew that, though.
Good. For a night raid.
What's that, a plot hook? Gimme.
So it's a night raid. Got to cross no man's land in the dark.
Oof.
You can bring your guns, but if you use them, both sides will open up because, again, Kingsman.
Scene. Oh, dude. That scene is such a mother of a scene.
So the complication, though, is going to be not that there's an enemy night raid happening. There are ghouls feasting on the corpses in no man's land.
Oh my God, no.
Yeah, so we've wrapped in this whole necromancy aspect. I know it seems like I've lost the alien thread here.
No. I was just going to say, it's interesting because the idea of a toy box decreases the aliens from being such a specific thing. So it's interesting that playing something that introduces the X factor to this pure soldiers and everything, and then that idea of not only do you not have to stick with just this thing, but you can throw that massive curveball to make it more interesting, more fun. And the idea of it being a toy box is just, I have so many things in my toy box. Your brain automatically goes to that thing that you really like. That you don't want to wedge in places because you've done it too many times and you want to be careful about wedging it in. With me, it's dream stuff. I had a whole bad guy who was the god of nightmares. Can't go back to that well ever, at least for 5 years.
Yeah, that's fair.
But with you, when your brain goes, ooh, I've always wanted to play a super powerful necromancer, and this is the perfect setting for him, and using all these undead and all this awesome stuff. Being able to go to your toy box and being like, oh, this toy I've always wanted to play with, but no one gave me the chance.
Well, so we've got all this necromancy stuff, and so at this point, players are going to be very.
I'm going to play necromancer.
No, you're not. But players, as players are, they're going to suddenly become very comfortable. I mean, their characters might not be, but they're going to be like, oh, okay, this is undead, so this is just World War I with magic. Okay, I can get behind that. Well, one or two sessions down the line, suddenly just aliens and little flying saucers come down and start shooting at stuff. Haven't quite decided on where I'm going to land their tech level, but it's not going to be 50,000 money piece plasma rifles. But it's going to be some pretty spicy stuff, and they're going to come down, start attacking both sides.
Okay, when you said them coming down and using, my brain immediately thought of Modron.
Okay,
coming in, and then they're also having crazy tech weapons and stuff like that. And so you have the 8-sided freaking tentacle Modron who can wield 3 at a time or something crazy,
Well, I was trying to look for something specific to be these aliens because I did kind of want to lean into the whole little green men frail type thing. Well, I had this whole tie-in at first where it was going to be they were kind of alerted by the use of necromancy, and that's a big no-no for everyone, and they'd come in and try to, just recklessly attack it. Then I was like, no, fuck that. It's going to be completely random that they ended up showing up here, but it ties in later. So they are little green men. Aesthetically, they are 3-foot tall humans with heads the size of watermelons.
They're just rusted copper autonomes.
No, they're Darrow. Darrow, the little mutated dwarf dudes that live in the Underdark. They're all insane.
Wow.
Unilaterally just absolutely insane creatures, like actually insane. They are not sane beings.
Yeah, they're genetically mad.
Yeah, they're little shitheads mostly. Like that's how the book basically describes them.
True, yeah.
But they're led by psionically active leaders who can shoot a beam of radiant energy that's 60 feet long and 5 feet wide.
Hot damn.
Because of their psychic powers, and they're all aberrations, which was important to me.
Ooh, okay. So they have like aberrant mind stuff going on too?
Yes, and they're resistant to magic and stuff, and it's like this whole thing. So they're going to show up, and they're going to get gacked pretty quickly. I mean, the toughest thing that they have is like CR3.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, they're going to get smote, however you want to.
Smote upon the ground.
But they're going to get beaten. And, behind the scenes, they're attacking a couple different places.
But that technology spread after they're beaten. Oh, yeah. No.
And it's not like, and now this isn't like, Independence Day where they're over every major city or anything like that. It seems like it's just in a few places, a few little ships landed.
They targeted biomass during a war.
No.
Oh, damn it. No. Oh, God. Because I was going to say everybody would be at the front lines and stuff like that. So
no, absolutely. No, that would be a very solid choice. And Passchendaele would have been a pretty good battle for it because there was a lot of people there and a lot of good people.
It would be battlefields and cities if you're just going for biomass. And then you realize you're horribly outclassed because you underestimated your enemy and overestimated yourself.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. The reason that they get their dick slapped down is because they decide to attack humanity during its most brutal war in its entire written history. It's like, yeah, we can do this. No, we can't. Oh, God. I kind of dialed that back. And it's funny. A lot of this got written last night, literally, when I could not sleep between the hours of midnight and 4.
Yeah. Oh, that's another DM advice. Embrace your insomnia and just start rolling with it.
Yeah.
Even if you don't write it all the way down, they'll be there tomorrow. But it also helps alleviate the stress of not being able to sleep, in my opinion.
Yes. And that really good idea that you have that you'll remember tomorrow.
Also true. Yeah. Make a note somewhere, somehow.
That's the actual twist, because it seems like the twist is the undead. And then the actual twist is, oh no, it's not just supernatural stuff. It's extraterrestrial.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah. And that actually it leads into a whole series of short shots going through history, basically up until future times. Like we're talking Halo era stuff, dealing with humanity and the fact that aliens keep fucking with them.
Oh.
And how they grow to kind of despise that and distrust things that are not human. Yes, we're dipping a little bit into the old 40K.
Yeah. Okay. All
which
right.
I'm a big fan of. But but this is kind of I also wanted to draw inspiration from that for parts of the space game without just being whole hog Warhammer.
Yeah, because there's a game for that.
Yeah, there's a game for that, and I love that setting. But also, it sucks ass if you're not trying to play the humans or literally anything else. So
basically, what I'm hearing is you took a game from 2000. I really want to say 2007, 2008.
I don't even know when it came out.
The HD version drops, and it's perfect for the setting you have in mind. And its twist just turns into it just slaps the wheels turning in the brain to get everything rolling.
Yeah, and that's kind of how it ends up happening. With one weird little twist will turn into a whole fucking thing, an entire campaign set.
Actually, since we're talking about otherworldly inspiration, we've mentioned the King's Man a few times.
Yeah.
Is that also another otherworldly for this particular short shot?
Yeah, absolutely. So the King's Man, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, neat World War I movie. I like these. This is a cool movie. And then that specifically the night raid scene, I was like, I need to put that in a campaign somehow. I love that idea, especially you have guns, but if you use them, you're hosed.
Dead. Yeah.
So that was probably the beginning of my interest in World War I as a theme for any sort of D&D, any sort of role-playing game. And then after that, I was just watching other stuff. 1917 came out, fantastic film, by the way. And then that scene, when they're going through the German trenches, that also was it started just compounding. And so, yeah, definitely otherworldly inspiration for this campaign. For how it started was just 1917 and the King's Man. Mm-hmm. And then because of this game that I played, looking for more inspiration and creative juices to inspire, just inspiration, I guess, that threw in an extra twist that became this whole thing. It's gone off the rails. I mean, now I didn't go into it really, but Rasputin is a necromancer and dealing with what his phylactery or phylacteries are. Because, oh, by the way, he's a lich. Also, when he died in 1916, he ran off to Germany and was like, hey, fuck Russia. They screwed me over. I'll be on your guys' side. And that's when Germany starts using necromancy.
Hell yes.
When you're planning a campaign to run for people, definitely put stuff in that you are interested in.
Yeah.
because it'll keep your engagement there. So, especially if it's something weird like aliens coming down in World War I, no one else is going to run that for you.
No.
You have to run it yourself, and it's going to be something that you'll enjoy. And more importantly, it's something your players will probably get a kick out of.
Yeah.
Now, that is something also as kind of a footnote to the add-on, I would say is if you're planning on running a campaign where there's going to be a serious plot twist or like a sharp heel turn, confirm with your players beforehand. Don't necessarily, spoil the surprise, but say, hey, are you guys okay with like a very serious plot twist that's going to kind of derail this campaign? Because I once was doing actually the fabled boat game that did not go well.
Okay.
The whole thing was I was going to be teaching the players how to run their own ship.
Yeah.
Neat, right? Cool. They're going to have a boat. No, they were going to, there's this whole old setting called Dragon Star, which is basically D&D in space.
I've heard of Dragon Star.
That's where the Dragon Empires thing that I always talk about
yeah.
comes in from. That planet was going to get elevated. They were going to get basically invaded and brought into the fold forcibly.
Oh, dear.
And so the ship running that they were actually training to do was for a spaceship. However, the campaign fizzled well before that happened. And when I was talking with everyone after the fact, a couple of my players were actually upset. They were just like, hey, that's a neat idea and we like that. But that's not the character I made.
I was ready for pirate adventures.
Yeah, I made boat guy, not spaceship guy. So
that's actually a really good lesson to learn, especially if you ever have a campaign fizzle, because it'll happen. And honestly, the really big thing I want to drive home is it can be nobody's fault.
Mm-hmm.
It can just happen because there are a million different factors. But if you talk to your players or your DM, if you're a player, talk to the people about, why it fizzled.
Yeah.
It could be anything from the players weren't engaged with the system itself. The story had too many twists and was too hard to follow.
Mm-hmm.
Or it didn't have enough twists. It was too straightforward.
Yeah.
The amount you can learn from just that communication is crazy. But, that's the beauty of running the game you want to play, is that somebody is going to really love your love of the setting and campaign.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I think that's all we have for today. But,
yeah, I think that'll about wrap it up.
Thanks for hanging out with us, having some fun. Hopefully we gave you some ideas as either a player or a DM, or hopefully we're your otherworldly inspiration, maybe. Who knows? Take it, run with it, have fun, roll well.
Run the game you want to play.
Run the game you want to play. Do it. Don't think about it.
You've been listening to the DM Emporium podcast. To support us, click the links in the description. Buy a t-shirt or join our Patreon. Join us next week for more builds, game running theory, and useful tips for any campaign.